Okay, all right. So, muchas gracias por asistir a nuestra reunión y como quería explicarle los puntos principales, pues es de que vamos a tener esta aplicación que se llama Wordly, que usted la va a ver en el chat y lo que tiene que hacer es abrir la caja azul si usted necesita servicios de traducción y como ve aquí en las imágenes, puede ver que dice que el idioma que estamos ahorita hablando es en inglés, usted lo va a cambiar a español. Y ahí va a ver cómo se están traduciendo todo el diálogo. And we move to the next slide, please. Y aquí puede ver también que el idioma lo cambiamos a español y ve todo el diálogo de lo que vamos a estar hablando. Y lo que quiero recalcar es de que más adelante información en español sobre este entrenamiento va a ser ofrecido a todos los que estamos aquí presentes por si tienen preguntas o necesitan estar más informados. También quiero recalcar que si están usando un teléfono inteligente, que seleccionen abajo a la derecha va a estar una letra W para Wordly. Por favor, seleccione ese botón para que pueda ver el diálogo. Y una cosa más que quiero explicar es de que si tienen que ver el diálogo y también la presentación, pues no se va a poder ver las dos. Entonces, por favor, seleccione lo que le convenga más a usted. Muchas gracias. Next slide.
Thank you so much for joining us this evening. My name is Carla Hoftallen, and I'm a program manager with Southwest Human Development. And I'm just going to review a little housekeeping for us today. We ask that you do not use the chat to ask your questions today because we are saving that for our translation services. Please ask your general questions in the Q&A, and the team will do their very best to answer as many questions as possible. Please know on the website is a follow-up FAQ that you can go to with the most asked questions. There's also a Google form that's going to be put in the chat that you can fill out so that they can respond directly to you by email with your questions. This meeting is being recorded and will be available for replay on the Arizona Workforce Registry. So please know your questions are extremely valuable to us. The DES team will answer your questions, and we're going to do our best to answer as many as we can tonight. Just note, if someone at your program other than you is responsible for the CCSG reporting, please share this information and the webinar recording with them.
Great. Thank you so much, Carla and the Southwest Human Development team for getting us started with the Spanish translation. I am here to welcome you. My name is Leela Wendell, and I am the Assistant Director at the Department of Economic Security for our Division of Child Care. I am so thrilled. We are all so thrilled with the overwhelming number of providers who signed up for our webinar today. We're really, as Carla mentioned, here to answer your questions and to provide some additional clarification. So during this webinar, we will be going through the remaining Child Care Stabilization Grant timeline. We will be going through the reporting clarifications and providing some examples on how the reporting should be submitted each month. We'll also talk to you about some of the upcoming CCSG grant monitoring that will be happening. There's also some really exciting news around the future grant opportunity, and so we'll provide you some really valuable information of what you'll need to know to be able to apply for that new grant program and seamlessly be able to continue some support for our DES contracted providers. So with that, I also just want to thank you all for your time. I'm sure your day started very early today, and wrapping up, it was probably even challenging to be able to get things settled to be able to sign in today at 6 p.m. So just know that we are so appreciative of every moment of your time, and we really hope that this is value add for you. And thank you so much. So with that, we will begin our webinar. Thank you.
Thank you, Leila. Good evening. My name is Tracy Lira, and I am a part of the DES team. And as I go through this presentation, I will also have some of my colleagues join me, Stacy Reinstein and Martha Frankemont. We wanted just to start off with saying, we know we've been emailing you a lot. And specifically, an email went out on May 10th to providers that currently have been identified as possibly having reporting issues. Some of those common errors that we're seeing, we will be addressing today, but specifically, we may be seeing reporting of all business expenses, not just for the grant, which results in showing more funds than you have been awarded. Also, reporting only what you have spent in the month instead of what you have spent since the beginning of the grant. We've seen in some examples answering to the question, yes, you have spent all of your grant funds, but the total reported does not match the total award received. So if you are in any of these categories, good news, you're in the right place. We have received your questions and we're going to address many of them today. Do want to recap again, any specific questions will be responded to directly by email, and using that Google form to submit them will allow us to see your email and your question and get back to you directly. We also have answers to your frequently asked questions posted on our website on the DES az.gov/CCSG, and there are some new frequently asked questions posted there as well. You can go to the next slide, please. Thank you. So CCSG timeline. Can you believe we only have 2 CCSG award payments left? With that, April 2023 CCSG report is due by the end of May. If you haven't already submitted it, you have until the end of May to submit your April report. The last week of May, May 22nd, you'll receive your May award payment, with your May report being due by the end of June. You'll receive your final award payment in June, near the week of June 19th. Your June report will be due by July 31st. Then we have a final CCSG report. This is due by October 31st. But we want to let you know that if you have spent 100% of your grant funding, there is no need to wait. You can submit your report as soon as you have spent 100% of your funds. You do have until September 30th to spend all your funds. So once you've received your last payment in June, if you are still wrapping up some of your spending, you do have until September 30th, and you can submit that final report that last month then of October. We can do the next slide. So submitting the final report. We want to let you know that submitting the final report is the same that you do for your monthly report. So you submit it the same way. You log into the portal and you click on final report. You only submit your final report when you have spent 100% of your grant funds. And again, just to recap, that it is due by October 31st, but you can submit it anytime prior if you have spent 100% of your funds. And providing receipts and documentation is not required when submitting your monthly report or your final report, but it is important that you keep your detailed records of your spending for accurate reporting and easy access, if requested, to provide verification for auditing. Next slide. So that was a lot of information in a short 2 slides. So we're gonna take a quick look at the Q&A and see if there's a common theme of questions. So I'm going to ask Martha.
Hi, Tracy. So a lot of the questions we are getting at this point are logistical. So around registry credit. Megan, I'm not sure if you would be able to answer that question, or Tiffany.
Absolutely. I did answer some of them, but yes, to receive registry credit, you do need to register through the Arizona registry. Putting your registry number in the chat will not get you that registry credit.
We're also getting a lot of questions about the Spanish subtitles. So they're not showing up in the chat. I'm not sure, Tiffany, if you're able to address that or if we need to make a different change to address that.
Yes, of course. Si no tienen acceso a abrir la selección de la traducción, en el chat se abrió un link de Wordly y si lo pueden abrir y donde está la caja azul que dice Open, abran por favor ahí el link para que se abra y ya cambie el lenguaje a su preferencia. Va a decir SP, que significa español, y entre paréntesis va a decir FX o va a decir ES. Por favor, traten de hacer eso y si todavía tienen dificultades, pónganlo en la sección de Q y A para poder proveer más asistencia.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tiffany. Just a couple other things. This webinar will be posted on the DES website afterwards. We will also send an email. So we're getting a lot of questions about that. And just a reminder, I'm seeing some questions come in through the chat. Please submit any questions you have through the Q&A. So it should be an option on the bottom of your screen or wherever the ribbon of your screen is that says Q&A. So that is where you can submit questions and we're doing our best to respond as they come in. And lastly, yes, you are all on mute. So don't worry about that. And your cameras you don't have to turn them on. So I think that covers the questions, Tracy. Thank you.
Thank you. We will do some other check-ins on questions here in a few slides. So thank you for that. All right, CCSG reporting requirements. As you're submitting your final month's reports and your final report, we just wanted to remind you to report your total expenditures. As we mentioned earlier, we have noticed many providers submitting incorrectly. So I do want to point out in section 2 of the grant, it's the total grant expenditures. It does require you to report total spending or cumulative spending accrued from your first CCSG award month to the current month's payment. So if you received an award in August of 2021, every month that you've received the payment through now and any of your expenses from that time should be reported. And it should be reported in each of the categories that are listed on the screen. These are all your allowable categories, and you would just break down that total on each of those categories. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and pass it over to Carla, and she's going to go over some examples of what this looks like.
Thank you, Tracy. I just want to do a check. Team, can you see the spreadsheet? I want to make sure the spreadsheet can be seen.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, Megan. So folks, as you know, this reporting worksheet is not required. However, because it does cumulative totals for you, we highly recommend that you use it. And I'm going to go through this worksheet. This is a sample from a provider who filled the worksheet out correctly. And I want you to pay close attention to this total here. This $396,824.59. Because as we go forward, you're going to see how using this worksheet can make your reporting much easier. So for example, this first page in the category totals are the cumulative totals from this worksheet. Their formulas are already here, and it is going to total and simplify everything for you. This particular provider went ahead and used this worksheet and entered all the grant awards that they received at each month. And as you can see, each month they entered the grant award that they received, the regular amount, and then also their workforce amount. And that was totaled for them. And then through each of the tabs, you're going to begin to see that they also accounted for how they spent the money. So they chose to use some of their grant dollars for personnel costs. And so they entered in on the months that they used, the amount that they used in personnel costs, they put in their totals, then they chose the cost categories. And Tracy just talked about making sure that you are using it for the cost categories that were allowable. The worksheet also has a drop down under the cost categories that will tell you those allowable expenses. So it makes it really easy to know, is this an allowable expense? And so this provider used monies for payroll and wage supplements. And they just did the totals. They didn't have to break it down by staffing, just the totals. Then what is really important is you have to keep that backup documentation, and you want to remember that you have that backup documentation. And so you're just going to mark yes for receipts, and then make sure however you keep your documents secure that you're keeping those that match your worksheet. Again, this provider used some of their funds for rent. And so you can see the amounts, their rent is the same every month. They paid their rent every month. And then just so I could show you, they put the drop down, shows that it was for rent, and then marked yes for their receipt. It's that simple. If there's a category you're not using any of your grant funds for, you're going to leave that blank. And so this provider did not use for facility maintenance, but they did have some months that they used the monies for goods and services. So again, on the months they used for goods and services, they put the amount in, they put that cost category, and then yes, that they had their receipts. And then this provider, nothing for tab 7, personal protective equipment, nothing for equipment and supplies, and nothing for mental health support. Once their worksheet is updated each month, again, cumulative of all of the months that money was spent, they again see their total. And then what's great about this worksheet, directly from the worksheet, they can click and it will go straight to the monthly reporting. Now I'm going to turn that over to Megan, who she's going to talk about reporting.
Thank you, Carla. Okay, I did want to pause for 1 second. There's quite a few questions in the Q&A, which is great, but I've responded to a couple, and I know the rest of the team has as well. This reporting spreadsheet, a reporting guide, everything is on the website. I've responded to a couple, but I can also put it in the chat as well, if that's easier, directly to the website where you can have access to everything we're going over today. Martha, anything? I know you're quickly trying to read through the questions. Anything before I report on the reporting that you have questions on?
We are getting a lot of questions about how do I know the total that has been sent to me? And the way I'm that's a great question. And we also know that everybody is wanting to know the answer to that question, so you're not alone. We will be following up on this question, but for now, you can submit that specific question through the Google form, and we'll follow up with you. And so that's how I'm responding, is links to the Google form, but we are going to follow up more broadly in the near future on that question.
Thank you. All right, so what we're looking at here is your CCSG monthly reporting. This is what you submit monthly. Each month you're going to receive the CCS award. This report is due by the last day of the month following the previous month's expenditures. Got an example there at top. The August 2022 CCSG report must be submitted by September 30th, 2022. So if we are looking at right now, you will go in and you will put your information in. So for example, right now, it's already showing up. This is the test provider, that's fine. It will have the provider ID. You will go through and find yours, but this is the test provider. You will put in your provider ID. You will put in your ADHS license number, your provider type, and then your county. Drop downs there available as well, but you will put in your information. This is just a test that we're going through. We are going to look at section 1. So this is the previous month reporting. So we are doing the example for May 2023. You will pick the month that you are reporting when you're going through. A couple questions that it's going to be asked. In May 2023, the month that we're reporting for, did you close for more than 14 days? We have selected no. You will select yes if you have closed for more than 14 days. Do you have any planned closures coming up? We have selected no. Again, you would choose this when you're doing your reporting for your program. If it's yes, you would pick yes. How many childcare employees were employed on the last day of May 2023? Again, we are filling in our information. We had 14 childcare employees on the last day of May 2023. How many of those childcare employees left employment in May 2023? 2 is what is for our example. How many children attended at least one day in May 2023? We had 74 children that attended at least one day in May. That is the reporting for the previous month that you're going to go through and you're going to answer those questions. For section 2, this is going to be your total grant expenditures. So the paragraph right underneath section 2, please enter the total grant funds spent since first receiving the CCSG award in each category below. This would include your total spending of all grant funds received since your first month awarded, not just your grant funds spent or received in May 2023, which happens to be the month that we are test reporting for. So where you're going to get all of these numbers from is the worksheet. That again is optional, but it's very helpful in accurately completing your report. The personnel costs that we would take directly from the reporting guide that Carla was showing. The personnel costs that this program spent cumulative since the beginning of their grant is $155,265.98. When you put in that number, a pop-up happens. How many employees were impacted by this personnel spending? You would enter how many of your employees were impacted by that total amount. Have you received the CCSG workforce amount? Yes or no, depending on your program. We chose yes. A pop-up will also come when you click yes. The option is I have increased employee wages or benefits since receiving the Child Care Stabilization Grant. You would click that. If you scroll down, now you're going to please select how the grant funds were spent on personnel. The options are listed here. I took this option from the report that Carla was showing. That employee, that program showed that they spent their personnel funds on payroll or wage supplements. So we checked payroll and wage supplements. The next category is rent, mortgage, or utilities. This test program spent $176,608.75 since they received their grant. So this is their total amount thus far that they've spent on rent, mortgage, and utilities. Again, please select how those grant funds were spent on rent, mortgage, or utilities. Because we filled out the spreadsheet, we were able to see that we spent this on rent. That's already written on the spreadsheet from that drop down. So we check rent. You scroll down, oh, you're there. So beyond that, facilities maintenance or improvements, this test program did not spend any amount of their grant funding on facilities maintenance, so they entered 0. Goods and services, they spent $64,949.86. So we entered that from the sheet, from the previous sheet. Personnel protective equipment, PPE, They spent 0 this test school. We entered 0. Same with equipment and supplies for public health emergency and mental health support. 0 was this test school spending. Right below mental health support is going to show your total grant expenditures. This amount, once you enter it, will equal exactly what was on that previous spreadsheet that we looked at to be the total grant amount that you have spent thus far. It is going to ask you, have you spent all of your grant funds? The previous worksheet that we were looking at also tells you if you have funds still needing to be spent. This is going to help you answer yes or no. If it says on the previous spreadsheet, you still have funds to be spent, you will click no. It's going to ask you all the way down to the bottom, please check boxes below to indicate how you plan to use these grant funds that you have not yet spent. This test program is going to use them in rent, mortgage, utilities, or insurance. That's what we checked. Can DES or a grant evaluation partner contact you to learn more about your report responses and provide additional details if applicable? You may click yes or no, that is your choice. And then there's 2 questions below. It is important to retain this report for your reference. Please provide an email address to receive a copy of your form responses. You would enter the email address that goes directly to you or the person filling out the form. There is a spot right below that. If you would like a copy of your responses to be sent to a second email address, you absolutely can input the second email address in that bottom gray line. You will hit submit, and then you will receive an email stating that you sent it either to just yourself or your secondary email as well, but you will receive a receipt that you have completed the reporting for that month.
Thank you, Megan.
Thank you.
We're going to pause again since that was such great information for some questions in the Q&A.
Thanks, Tracy. I'll just emphasize one, a big question that's coming up over and over in the chat or in the Q&A is, am I supposed to report just what I spent last month? Or am I supposed to report everything I've spent? You're supposed to report everything you've spent. So that, and that's covered extensively in the various resources. So we will make sure an email gets sent out with links to all of those resources. Several other questions. Give me just one moment here.
Well,
We're also, go ahead, Tracy.
Sorry, Martha. If you have in the past reported only your monthly expenses, there is no need to go back because we are asking for all your total expenditures. Simply correct it on your next report with all of your expenses. And that way we will have a report with all of your expenses captured moving forward.
We're also getting a lot of questions about where do I find this Excel file? So the Excel file is posted online in the same place that the monthly portal is located, under the resources section. And we call it online, Tracy, the cost reporting worksheet.
Correct.
So that is where
reporting guide, and then it.
Yeah, the Excel file is the cost reporting worksheet, but the reporting guide goes through how to fill it out. One other clarification is you don't have to submit the Excel file to us. It's just a tool for you to use so that you know the right totals to report on the monthly report every month and on the final report, which, as Tracy said, we're requesting the same information on the final report as we do on the monthly reports. It's just the cumulative total of all the grant funds after the last payment in June. I think that's good for now, Trace.
Thank you. All right, I know this is a burning question on everyone's mind, our CCSG monitoring. So you've also recently been notified of our new DES approved vendor, Clifton Larson Allen LLP, or we refer to them as CLA, and they will be conducting our CCSG monitoring, and that's going to begin this month, May 2023. What you need to know about this monitoring. If you're selected for monitoring, CLA will reach out to you directly. The monitoring will start with requesting records and verification of payments for just 1 quarter, so a 3-month period of time. And that specific 3 months will be specified in the request from CLA. And it will also review the timeline for submission. You will be asked to provide a detailed expense report and proof of payment. Again, our cost reporting worksheet is optional, but it is a highly recommended worksheet that can be used as this detailed expense report. And proof of payment is your spending records, like your receipts, invoices, statements, you know, bank records, that kind of thing. I'm just making sure I didn't miss anything. So that is all about our CLA audit. So questions about auditing, and I know they're still giving them time to come in.
So I'm not seeing any questions about auditing at this point, but Megan and team help me out if you are. But we are getting a lot of question about records retention. How long do we need to hang on to this documentation? And we also cover this in some of the resources posted, and the recommendation is 5 years. And Tracy, correct me on the language, but 5 years.
You are required to keep your records for 5 years. And so you want to keep those in a safe location, maybe even a backup electronically is always recommended. All right, it looks like the questions kind of slowed down and there was nothing else specific to this. So we'll go ahead and keep trucking along.
Tracy?
Yes.
There is one more that I think is important just with the time of year, which is related to closures. If you intend to be closed for 14 days or more, how do you report that?
Great question, Stacy. So if you plan on being closed more than 14 days, for example, in the month of June, we do have a lot of locations closed in June, you will not receive your June month award, and you would not be required to submit a June payment or a June report. But when you do reopen, you will be expected to submit a report that shows where you're at with your spending. If you have spent 100% of your funds, you may go ahead and submit your final report. If you have not spent 100% of your funds and you reopen, say in August, it's highly recommended you submit your June report. And that kind of leads into our new grant that we are excited to announce. We have the Arizona Child Care Assistance Provider Grant. We're going to be calling it AZCAP for short, which has eligibility requirements of being a DES contracted or certified provider on the date of application. You must have spent 88% of your CCSG funds received as reported in June of 2023 report, which is due by July, or 100% of your funds as spent, 100% of your funds spent as reported in your final report. And you must be in good standing with DES and your regulatory agencies. The application will open July 1st, and it will remain open through September 15th. And once it is open, it will be listed on our DES website. The funding uses, it will be allowed to be spent on personnel costs, rent, mortgage, and utilities. This will be a one-time grant award payment, and it will be paid out in October And the final award amount will be based on availability of funds and the number of applicants. And complete spending will be allowed through June 30th of 2024. I do want to let you know, if you are not currently a DES contracted or certified provider, you may find out more about our application process to become DES certified or contracted on our website under Become a Childcare Provider or Become a DES Provider. And I also want to show you or recap that with the 88% of your CCSG funds, this is where that cost reporting worksheet and your monthly reporting come in very handy to make sure that you are doing your full spending and you're evaluating your total award received with the number of funds spent. We can go to the next slide. I'm going to go ahead and pass it over to Leela at this time. So thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much again to the DES Division of Child Care team and Southwest Human Development. And a huge thank you to our child care provider team. All child care providers across the state will be recognized tomorrow, celebrating Child Care Provider Appreciation Day. So tomorrow, DES and our child care resource and referral team will be showing appreciation and recognition all throughout the day tomorrow. We will be posting an article that ties to Child Care Provider Appreciation Day. And we've also been collecting appreciation messages from DES staff and the public to be able to share with you what you may not hear so often, just that gratitude that parents and caregivers have for, being able to trust all of you with taking care of their children and helping them learn and grow and love them, so that they feel safe and thriving, and they're our future. So I think with this, it's really fun to read some of these messages here. One here: the time that my children spent in early childhood and pre-K programs was so important. Every little hug, song, circle time, and book is imprinted in their brains and in my heart. I am thankful for all of our child care professionals. Thank you so much for all that you do. Because of you, our children have a safe place to go. I appreciate you all taking care of my babies when I am working hard to provide for them. You all are appreciated. It is such a weight lifted when child care providers do their diligence to care for and provide for my children so that I may continue to work and provide for them. You are an extension of our home and family. All our children are blessed with the providers like you who help make up the village it takes to raise them. You should be proud of the enormous loving impact your contribution has on our children who need that extra love, care, and guidance when they are with you. I want to strongly and lovingly thank you all for what you do. Thank you for loving our children as much as we do. Every time you notice and recognize a child's bid for attention is meaningful to that child. You matter and are needed for families who are trying to provide for their families. Take time for you and acknowledge what you do as a profession. So thank you all so much for that. We really, again, appreciate your time today. And I think with that, we can wrap up with our next slide.
Thank you, Leela. So we just want to thank you again for attending our webinar today and learning more about our reporting and our monitoring and all of the exciting things to come. We want to recap that the webinar was recorded or is recorded and will be available soon on our DES website. And for questions, specific questions, you can email the childcare grants at azdes.gov, or you can also use that Google form that was provided. It captures your email and your question, and we can get back to you. And if you need support with reporting or ideas for managing your budget in the final months with the CCSG, go ahead and contact Early Childhood Business Solutions team at Southwest Human Development. They can also give you ideas on how to spend the funds if you're having trouble spending the funds by September 30th deadline. And their contact information is listed below. All right, I just want to take, I know this was not in our slides, but one last second to see if there's any urgent questions that we need to address, Martha, that were popping up.
So many, Tracy. I was just trying to note exactly how many we have left. So we've gotten through about half of the questions that have come in. And we did have some specific questions about the monitoring around, you know, what specifically they're going to ask for. I think, Tracy, are there more specifics around that posted or in the communication that has gone out?
I apologize, Martha. I was reading a question as you were. I shouldn't have looked at it while I was waiting. Can you restate?
No problem. We did get a couple specific questions around what is going to be requested during monitoring. Do we have specifics or is what we have shared kind of the extent of what we have communicated thus far?
Great question. So they will be requesting a detailed expense report and any documentation proof of receipts for those items listed on that report. So that's the extent of what we know of what's being requested from them. Again, we highly recommend the cost reporting worksheet as it will meet that requirement along with your receipts.
Tracy, also in the chat, there's a lot of questions around how will they know their total grant amount. We've been putting the Google sheet in to ask that question to get DES to respond to that. So I didn't know if there was another answer you'd like to give, or that's a lot of the remaining questions there of how to know the total amount.
Thanks, Megan. At this time, the best way to get a response to that is to put your question into the Google form. And that way it goes right to our team that can look and research those questions more specifically and get back to you. As I'm sure you guys are aware, everybody's grant amount is a little bit different depending on when you started the grant. So it does take a little bit of research on our end. Great questions.
And just one last, I know I've said it a couple times, but still in the chat, the major question is, do we report everything we've received? And the answer is yes. So, you know, if you've been receiving the grant since August 2021, you report on any spending that's happened since August 2021. If you received the grant beginning in January 2023, so just a few months, you report on everything you've spent since January 2023. Also, you don't need to go back and correct old reports. So no worries, just start that practice moving forward, beginning with your April report that is due at the end of May, or your May report that is due at the end of June.
So I think that does conclude our webinar. We might just stay on for a few minutes to wrap up some of these questions. You really take advantage of this time to be able to hear from you and get back to you.
Yeah, Tracy, because we have time, I thought we could do a brief recap going from the agenda that I outlined at the beginning of the webinar. We don't have to go through the slides again, but just explaining that for the remaining CCSG timeline, there will be 2 more payments, one in May and one in June. And there are still the associated reporting timeframes for those 2 amounts, as well as a final report that is due. And that final report can be submitted when you have spent all of those funds. So I'll just pause there and see if Tracy or Martha have anything else to add for the remaining CCSG timeline recap.
I think you recapped it. Again, the 2 payments, and you have we're in May. So if you haven't submitted your April report, submit that now. If you haven't been doing your monthly or the full total, you've been doing monthly totals, just make sure you do your full total in this next report and do that moving forward. Make sure you submit your May report in June, June report in July, and your final report thereafter.
Excellent.
No later than October 31st.
Great. And then I think we can go to the slide that's right before this one, and we can recap some of the reporting clarifications. So going back to the letter or email that many of you received, we've summarized in that letter, and again in this presentation, some of the common errors. So I think it would be worthwhile going through this slide once more.
Absolutely. So the most common errors, not accurately reporting the full grant award or total spending. So we do have some providers that are reporting all of their business expenses, not just what they use the grant funds for. And in these cases, it does result in, it looks like you've received higher, you're spent more than you've been awarded. So we are asking in those cases that you just report your grant funds. So it should never, your expenses in the grant should never exceed the amount you've been awarded. And again, no need to go back. You can just submit it correctly moving forward. And number 2, reporting only what you have spent in the month. On this one, again, we're just looking for cumulative reporting. So you want to make sure you add up every month's spending since the beginning of the grant and add that total, just as Carla and Megan demonstrated. And number 3, answering the question, have you spent all your grant funds, with a yes, but then your total award amount and your total expenses don't match. So that is another scenario where you could be incorrectly reporting. So using that cost reporting worksheet, you would want to make sure that the page 2 matched your total expenses from all of the tabs.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Tracy. And to reiterate, if you have specific questions about your grant amount or your report, the best thing to do is to contact DES. And again, Tracy, if you can share the best way for them to contact if they have questions remaining, what would those contact methods be?
Yes, if you have the Google form, that's a great way to do it. But if you don't have that, you can always send an email to childcaregrants@azdes.gov. That email address is on our website listed there. You can see in the blue link on the bottom of this screen. You can see our email address on that web page there. Great way to reach us and get your questions answered. And I do want to encourage you to include your provider ID number. It makes it a lot easier for us to look up your situation if we know specifically who you are.
Excellent. Thank you. And Martha?
Yes, I wanted to point out, so I'm reading feverishly trying to respond to the questions, so please, I apologize. But I do want to say a lot of these questions are on our new reporting FAQ, which we just posted today. And I am sure that that was mentioned, but if I don't remember, I'm sure others may not remember too. But really, many of these questions, I'm actually taking a lot of time because I keep toggling back and forth to try and copy the exact responses. So I would highly encourage you to read the reporting FAQ. And we are working on a Spanish translation of the reporting FAQ as well.
Thank you so much, Martha. And then for our next area that we talked about the upcoming CCSG monitoring. And I think there we had some questions about what do providers need to have ready if they are selected for monitoring. And I think what we would suggest, if you have any questions around or need support for how to manage that budget, we highly suggest the Excel worksheet and the guides and support. And I believe we would say contact our Southwest Human Development team. So I'll just pause there and have Megan maybe recap the support available to providers.
Absolutely. So I will put in the chat our support email and our support phone number, 8 to 4:30, Monday through Friday. Perfect. And it's on the screen. You can absolutely give us a call. We have specialists ready to answer, ready to help. We will go through any of your questions. And if we are unable, we will provide you the contact information of someone who can, but we will help you. Give us a call or email us.
Thank you so much, Megan. So again, to kind of distinguish, DES is the best avenue for your questions specific to your grant amounts, or maybe some reporting errors that you may be getting. Our Southwest Human Development partners are there to help with the management of the budget for some providers who may have not fully allocated their funds or need some ideas on how to allocate funds. That's where you want to go. That is a lot of the technical assistance available. And that is all very important because we did announce our future grant opportunity. And that is going to require that there is a report that shows that you have spent that 88% of the grant funds that you were awarded. So again, it's really important in this next month's report that you pay close attention to the FAQs, to the reporting documents, so that you can get an accurate report in. It will set you up understanding if you're close to that 88% or not. We want everyone who qualifies, all DES contracted providers, and those who aren't, please contract with us so that you can get that next grant opportunity. And I think with that, Tracy, I did see some questions in the chat on if it was a one-time payment or not. And maybe it's just a good opportunity to refresh what that new grant opportunity will be like.
Absolutely, yes. So the new grant will be a one-time payment. It will be paid out in October. You will have an opportunity to apply for the grant starting July 1, and you can apply anytime through September 15th. So if you're not currently DES contracted, that allows you some time to start right now your process of becoming contracted, and then you apply once you are contracted. It also allows you time if you have not spent up to 88% of your funds as of right now, then it allows you some time to get some of those funds spent and then make your application for the program.
Excellent, thank you. And then it wraps us back to the most important part of this, which is to celebrate you and make sure that tomorrow, especially every day, but especially tomorrow, that you really take a moment to reflect with how important you are to every child, every family that you serve, and to so many other people that you probably will never meet, but how your impact of what you do every day is there forever and is imprinted on so many hearts and minds. So again, we thank you so, so much. We will be taking any questions that we did not answer and are not in the FAQs. We're going to be adding to those FAQs. We will send that out. We also noted that there have been some challenges with the Spanish translation, so we will circle back and make sure that we have this information available in Spanish, whether that's another webinar or the materials sent out or a recording that we can make sure that the translation is set. So thank you all so much. And with that, I'll just look to see if any of my peers have anything else to add before we close out for the evening. Great. Well, thank you all so much. Have a great evening, everyone.